Brave people.
Meeting people.
South Africa winning by 62 votes.
Life.
Travel.
DTV is at the DeafNET Africa Conference. Today we learn how important storytelling is for learners. It's a brilliant way to improve one's sign language skills. Dr. Ruth Morgan now facilitates a workshop on storytelling.
95 after democracy. Basically, the TRC was set up to hear all the stories of injustice and crimes that were committed during apartheid, and for all the survivors and victims to have an opportunity to explain what happened to them and the trauma that they went through. Deaf people were not included in that process. And so a lot of the stories that we collected were people talking about the trauma that they had experienced as deaf South Africans. But it's important for everybody, whether you lived through apartheid or not, to tell their stories, because everybody's gone through abuse and hardships and oppression and traumatic experiences. That kind of pain and suffering is just part of the human condition, and it applies to all people, deaf and hearing. But in the deaf world, it's even more important because we all know about the extent of the oppression that happens to deaf people at the hands of hearing people.
Storytelling comes naturally for deaf children and is a part of deaf culture. For those who don't come from a deaf family, they also like telling stories because they socialize with deaf friends in schools. Is storytelling taught to the deaf, or does it come naturally? Storytelling can't be taught. Expressing and sharing your experiences come naturally.
We originally interviewed at least 10 people from each province, and we wanted a wide range of experiences, from young people around the age of 16, 17, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, to tell us about their experiences. We filmed the interviews and we just let people talk about their lives freely. We didn't ask a lot of questions. We just said, tell me about your experiences, tell me about your life as a deaf person. We found that all the people experienced oppression from the hearing world. But what was also interesting was that all deaf people of all races experienced very similar oppression and hardship and trauma as a result of oralism. And not only punishment from oralism, but general punishment. I was completely shocked at the level of abuse from the hearing teachers, the principals, and the house mothers. One young woman in particular told about how she was locked in a fridge and was at boarding school, and she was accused of stealing a few cents when she cleaned the classroom, and the teacher noticed some of her change was missing and blamed the child, and then didn't listen to the fact that she was innocent and locked her in the fridge, a big storeroom fridge, and at the school for hours. She actually was an adult by the time she was interviewed, and she told that story twice. The first time, and then she repeated the whole thing again with all those details again, because she was so traumatized, she needed to express it twice. And she wasn't the only one. Hers was maybe the most extreme, but there were lots of stories about lots of really severe punishment that was given out at schools.
Attending the presentation made me realize that storytelling is vital for deaf children. Going back home to Gabon, I will challenge the president of the Deaf Association to implement the necessary education. I will use all the information to the best of my ability.
The implementation process is not easy. We need role players in order to do storytelling. We will form relationships with schools of the deaf. For example, develop visual learning material. I hope we can gain support to develop visual learning material and receive support from the government.
I will take what I've learned back to Gabon and try to enhance the education. The standard of education is very low because the deaf are forced to oralize instead of sign, making it hard for them to learn. That's why our storytelling is not developed. I guarantee that if there's more signing, the education level will improve.
Some people that we interviewed grew up in a deaf family, and sign language was natural. It was the language of the family. They didn't have any communication problems at home. They grew up exposed to deaf culture and deaf adults. For those deaf children born to hearing parents, they learned about their identity, their language and their culture when they went to school. That's where they met other deaf people. That's where they learned sign language for the first time. Whatever hardships happened in the classroom, most of them got a connection and a sense of bonding in the hostels, out of the classrooms, with their deaf friends.
What is the one thing you want people who attend the workshop to take back to their countries? I hope when the people go back to their countries, they will continue gathering more stories. Share their experience, culture and identity to show the different variations. Next week, we'll bring you more from the conference.